This week on Property of the Week with PropertyLens, we traveled to Cincinnati, Ohio to take a look at a potential investment property. Is it a money pit? Is it a great house? Stay tuned and find out. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, ships at sea, it is time for this week's episode of Property of the Week from PropertyLens. For those of you who don't know, my name, Bob Frady, CEO and co-founder of PropertyLens. With me, as always,
John Siegman, president and co-founder of PropertyLens.
So normally I go in and pick a property, but John, this week you have picked the property. What property did you pick and why?
I picked a property in a lovely neighborhood in Cincinnati. For those of you who don't know, our CTO, Josh, lives in Cincinnati, and Bob and I make his life miserable. Not intentionally, but we do make his life miserable just about every day with different questions that we ask, wanting different things. And I thought to myself, what would be the only way we could make Josh's life more miserable? Move in next door. I looked for houses in Josh's neighborhood.
And it looks like you have picked out 2786 Mark Bright Avenue in Cincinnati, Ohio. It is a duplex, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1,800 square feet. Let's go see the report.
Well, you know, it is Ohio. There's lots of stuff to be affected, but what a nice neighborhood. Safe place score of an A. Property score of a C probably needs a little work.
Yeah, you don't normally see a safe place score of an A, which is great when we do see it. And when we look at the property score, what's dragging the score down?
The financials and the aging systems.
Yep. What's the snapshot telling us here, John?
Taxes have gone way up.
Yep.
It's had 4 owners in the last 15 years, which raises to me a little flag. Houses typically don't turn over every 3-4 years type of thing. It's a little bit slower than that. Typically, it's not a flip, so you're not walking into, somebody buying it and trying to make money off of it and maybe not doing the things that they should to the way that they should. No known building permits. I think the big one here is insurance has stayed, fairly flat. You're going to be walking into 10% of the cost of the house in repair costs in the next couple of years.
When I look at this, I see 2 yellow flags. Number 1 is no building permits. Is there any work that's reported to have been done? Because permits are required in Cincinnati. And the second is the repair costs. So this is a 108-year-old house. Obviously, not all the systems are 108 years old, but it looks like we're running up against the useful life of many things. But we'll see. Our highlights, it says it's an updated kitchen. Completely remodeled kitchen with modern finishes. Well, that's interesting since there's no permits. The roof looks good. And it's a turnkey investment. There's a duplex with the tenant in place until spring 2027, which is nice. So you'll have at least some rental revenue for a little while, maybe even longer. Some of the concerns: aging systems, probably in need of replacement. There's high pollution, and it's near a contamination site, and there is a radon risk here. So you want to make sure that you're asking, has it been inspected for radon? Our estimated repair costs, $42K. Insurance costs, $1,700, not too bad. Okay, the big 5 questions. What are you seeing here, John?
It looks like it does have a basement the way it's seated in the picture. Cincinnati is moderate for termites. They will travel through mud tunnels, and it's 108 years old. That is well-aged wood that is very tasty to those bugs. You want to check for water and mold damage in the basement, foundation condition. Lots of foundations, even at 108 years, are perfectly fine, but that is something that you definitely want to have inspected. And then any resolved issues from the roof's most recent hail damage. So the roof is in great condition, and so it may have been replaced recently due to that hail damage.
I've been on a bunch of real estate tours, and none of them talk about these issues. So this is exactly why we surface them in PropertyLens, is because nobody's talking about this stuff, but you have to live with this stuff once you move in.
You mean that the people that are pushing sales on a real estate tour don't talk about anything negative associated with the property, Bob?
I think you're onto something there, John Siegman.
I, for one, am shocked.
So when we look at our BuyerLens and our projected 2-year repair expenses, most of these systems are past their useful lifespan. at least according to the data that we have. There maybe has some work been done, but there is no signal to tell us otherwise. The listing or the permit data.
And the listing talked about the new kitchen.
Yep.
So you know that if any of this other stuff was new, it had been talked about.
Yep. So here's what we're seeing. We've got a 108-year-old property. No systems have been updated and lots of data. High turnover can be a sign of bad neighbors, bad noise, or other issues with property surrounding area. It's not because our CTO lives down the street.
No, it's not. That's not Josh's fault. I just
Yes. All of this is just check the age of the systems because you're going to be spending some money. You've got some risk of toxic exposure, which is radon. You got to ask, has there been a radon test at this area? Because there's no indication that there has been a system. You've got soil issues here. You got some runoff. You just want to be careful, especially when you have bad soils. They attack foundations. So when you have soils that run off, you always want to check the condition of either the crawl space or of the basement itself. And this one has a basement. So I did a property a couple of weeks ago for a friend of mine. It's built on a crawl space. I'm like, dude, you got some soil issues there. You better have that inspected. And they did. And it was a $75,000 repair to fix the issues with the underlying footings on the house. So you got to make sure you know what the soil conditions are like in that area. And from an insurance standpoint, pretty straightforward. One thing though is the replacement cost is higher than the asking cost. So this would cost more to replace than it would be to build.
And that is true of 70% of the housing in the U.S.
If you insure up to the value of the property, you're going to be close, but that is still a gap of $25,000, $35,000. Let's take a look at the listing that you're so desirous. We should just buy this just to aggravate Josh. It's a duplex, first floor unit, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a completely remodeled kitchen with modern finishes. You could also make that a rental. Upstairs is 2 bedrooms and 1 bath and has a tenant, or whether you just want to make this an investment portfolio, you can do these things. And it's in a desirable neighborhood because it says it several times.
Well, and Josh lives there.
I'm still thrown by the fact that it says the kitchen has been renovated, but there's no permits. So maybe it's just a cosmetic renovation where they, did some, maybe the floors and maybe the cabinets and didn't change any of the systems. But if they did make electrical changes, it's not permitted. And you got to wonder about that. So when we look at the ownership, this has been interesting. It was sold in 2013. Somebody got married, put his wife's name on the deed. They listed it in December, sold in January for $302,000. It's lovely. But then it went to a beneficiary creditor. And usually that's when one of the two passes away. And then it was sent over to an LLC, which is another flag to say, what's with the ownership on this place? And was this bought by an LLC or was it just reclassified as an LLC, or what's the deal with the deed? And John, why do you want to make sure that the deed is clear when you buy a house?
Well, because all sorts of bad things happen when they're not.
Yep.
Right?
Such as?
Well, you could have other creditors or unknown creditors that come back to haunt you. Questionable ownership. It just raises a bunch of hassles that you don't need to go through.
This may slow down getting title insurance, or it may make title insurance more expensive, but it's a factor that you want to be aware of when looking at title insurance for this location. You want to make sure you have it. This is the kind of thing that you want to be careful of when you're buying a property, especially if it's a rental property. Here's the taxes. Property's been reassessed. It looks like every 3 or so. Let's see, it was reassessed in 2017. It was reassessed in 2020. Yeah, it was $6,500 in 2025. It's actually come down a bit since 2020, the taxes on that location, which is interesting. But it's way above where it was 10 years ago in 2015. So you want to figure out what's going on from a tax standpoint at this location. Here's the pictures. Oh, it looks lovely.
It's nicely done.
Yeah.
There's that redone kitchen.
Here's the cosmetics in the kitchen. And gosh, it looks nice. And you got a basement and washer dryer. Lovely neighborhood. There's the plans. No catastrophic events at this location. If you look at the roof, looks pretty good. any events in the past. Nope. Everything looks pretty straightforward.
That roof changed color at some point.
Well, you got better light on it, it looks like. 2016. Different cars on the street, too. Roof condition looks pretty good. Looks like it was replaced about 10 years ago. So it's got 20 years left on its life. You still want to check. And it looks like it's in good condition. Doesn't have any big ponding or issues with it. A little bit of staining, but that's not that bad. So the roof looks like it's in pretty good shape.
Yep. One less thing to worry about.
There's your soil runoff, which we talked about before. Water hardness, do you have a water softening system at the property? And luckily, very low risk of mine subsidence because it is Ohio and there are a lot of mines that are hanging around making people unhappy. Here's the red flag, no permits. Look at that. Not a flood zone to be seen.
Nope.
So you're not going to need flood insurance. It's not recommended. I mean, you could if you really wanted to, but we don't recommend it. All right, from a climate standpoint.
Warm in the summer, but it is relatively... It's Cincinnati. You got some tornadoes.
Yep.
Should the new Madrid fault go, you probably will feel that. But otherwise, you got really nothing to talk about here.
Pretty straightforward. The crime risk is moderate in this area. So it's a C, a little bit of larceny, which is people taking stuff from which you don't like. But it's, America's a pretty safe place. This is relatively straightforward. Oh, there is a sex offender right down the street.
And that's not Josh. Josh lives over on Ballard Ave, which is just outside that circle on the right-hand side.
There it is, right over there. Could make this our office in Cincinnati. A couple of sex offenders, one's pretty close by. Not a lot of public transit, relatively okay from a walking standpoint, not a lot of noise.
Very quiet.
Yep, major points of interest. The airport is actually one of the airports. That's not the main airport. There's an airport 3 miles away.
That is not the main airport. The main airport is across the river in Kentucky.
Yes. So there's all the stuff you want in case you want to know where things are. You've got schools all around you. Toxic exposure. We talked about radon mold and the little PFAS in the drinking water. So you might want to get your water tested. Your contaminated sites. The nearest one is a brownfield, which is just less than half a mile away. There's a couple of them. Brownfields, John, can you give a description to our audience who aren't familiar with brownfields?
Brownfield is a mini Superfund site. It is something that will need to be remediated, but it is not anywhere near as large or nor as toxic as a Superfund site. You can think of them as abandoned dry cleaners or abandoned gas stations, things along those lines.
Now, what's interesting is there are several Superfund sites close by, one less than a mile away. So that's something you want to keep an eye on. Again, have your groundwater tested.
Well, you can dive into the EPA Superfund site database because we give you the name, we give you the location, and they can actually tell you what the issue is. If you're looking at, a paint site, depending upon how long it's been there, that could be a lead contamination issue because lead used to be in paint. The radiator site, guaranteed that you've got antifreeze spilled all over the place. You also happen to have metal that goes into making radiators and repairing radiators. And then an exterminator company warehouse really can't think of anything that might be in that would cause somebody to be a Superfund site except all of the things that kill bugs.
Fire protection, law enforcement, medical response are all good. If you want to see where they're located, we can tell you exactly where they are. Nearest fire station is less than a mile away. So you'll get to see the fire truck come every once in a while. Estimated utility costs run about $100 to $150 a month. A little more in the summer, a little less in the winter. Insurability is pretty good. You got a little bit of a risk factor, some crime. So depending upon the sensitivity of the insurance company, they'll charge different rates, so you should shop around. And there's the timeline. So that's it. It's a lovely property in Cincinnati, Ohio. So John, If you were going to buy 2786 Mark Bright Avenue in Cincinnati, Ohio, what are the top 3 things you're looking out for?
First is permits. Why aren't there any? You redid a kitchen. Maybe that didn't require any. Maybe it was just cosmetic. Maybe it was whatever. But that would be, a 108-year-old house has had to have work done over those 108 years. And granted, most places with permits, you at least go back to, year 2000, electronic from that point out. So why aren't there any? Something should have been done in the last 26 years, especially because we mentioned the kitchen is new. We know the roof is about 10 years old. There are some things that I would definitely want to find out about just with the work that's been done on the house. Given that the last person that owned it is an LLC, you would hope that they kept records on their expenditure. So maybe they've got all what they've put into it so far, and you'll be able to get that type of information. But they probably didn't collect that from the people that they bought it from. So you've got, a limited history, but a limited history is better than no history. So that's flag number 1 for me. Flag number 2, a little bit concerned about the toxicity of the area. You got radon, you got the Superfund sites, you've got the brownfields, you've got just stuff. And it's not that it doesn't exist in other places, it certainly does. But, I want to know what I need to be concerned about. So that would be number 2 for me. Number 3, there's not a whole lot else to be concerned about. I mean, there's no massive weather events other than it has a heat wave, which is having as we tape this. So I would love to see, that the AC works, the heating and cooling system's been updated, all of those types of things. But again, that gets into the permits and into the upkeep of the house and all the rest of those things. Because maybe it was done, maybe it wasn't. We don't know. So there's, it's really my full focus is on show me some proof.
Yep. Get the receipts, Felicia. I
Yeah.
think that's how the kids say it. Maybe they don't. If I were looking at 2786 Mark Bright Avenue in Cincinnati, Ohio, I'd be looking at 3 things. Number 1, system ages and conditions. Like what's been done, like you said, what has been done from an upkeep and maintenance standpoint to make sure you're not going to have to replace all these systems, because right away you're looking at 10% of the purchase price being dedicated to repairs. And maybe you budget for that and maybe you don't. Or maybe you negotiate or maybe you don't. But number 1 is system ages and conditions. Number 2 is the quality of the water. There's a lot of soup floating around underground from old Superfund sites, brownfield sites, all within a relatively walkable perimeter of the house. And yeah, you still can have, the city should take care of all that stuff, but get the water tested for this location. The third is a radon test. I would get a radon test for this location. Or maybe there's a system in there. Maybe it's just not disclosed. People don't often think to disclose this stuff. And then the fourth thing, because I always have the one extra, is what are the terms of the lease for the upstairs tenant? Because that'll go into the financing. Do you want to make this a single family house? It's got 2 doors, 2 separate entrances. Do you want to rent the other place out? Maybe you want to turn this into an investment property. Overall, it looks pretty nice. I don't see any major red flags, but I do see some pretty serious yellow flags that you're going to want to get checked out before you make an offer on the house. So yeah, those are the things that I'd be taking a look at this property. If this was in my sweet spot for buying an investment type property, I would certainly give this some consideration.
And we'd get to bother Josh all the time.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I put my face on the door, just put a big picture of my face on the front door. And every time Josh drove by, he'd have to look at my face. And maybe he would just avoid the neighborhood altogether. So that would be kind of fun. So anything else you want to add, John?
I don't think so.
So, hey, this is why we're here, to help buyers stay informed, because none of the things that we pointed out were listed in the listing. So we're here to help buyers protect themselves from surprise, unexpected expenses. So for this week's episode of Property of the Week, I'm Bob Frady.
I'm John Siegman.
Until next time. Oh yeah, hit that like or subscribe button because it makes us feel better about ourselves. Till next time.